Well, some fast casual chain restaurants are making a comeback.
Well, Red Lobster could be making a comeback.
You thought they were dead. You drove past their abandoned buildings for a decade. You assumed they were gone forever. You were wrong. Howard Johnson's, Ponderosa, Bennigan's, Chi-Chi's. Yes, the one that caused the biggest Hepatitis A outbreak in American restaurant history. All of them are being dug up right now by private equity firms and brand holding companies who think they can sell you nostalgia from a ghost kitchen. 15 zombie chains, 15 comeback attempts in 2026, and one rule the corporate suits keep forgetting: the reason most of these resurrections will fail spectacularly all over again. Let's dig in. 15. Howard Johnson's. Let's start with the ghost haunting the highway. You know the name, Hojo's. In the 1960s and 1970s, Howard Johnson's was the undisputed king of the American road trip. They had over 1,000 restaurants. They were the largest restaurant chain in the world, serving up 28 flavors of ice cream and those famous fried clams. If you took a family vacation, you ate under that bright orange roof. It was practically mandatory. But then, the world sped up. Fast food was invented. McDonald's and Burger King offered food faster and cheaper. Hojo's refused to adapt. They kept their massive menus and slow service, and slowly, agonizingly, they bled out. By the 2010s, it was a joke. By 2022, everyone reported that the very last location in Lake George, New York, had finally closed its doors and been put up for lease. But here is the tea. The brand name isn't dead. The trademark is currently owned by Wyndham Hotels. And in the shadowy corners of the hospitality industry, there is one rogue operator holding on to the diner concept for dear life. And Wyndham has been quietly teasing the idea of licensing the Hojo Nostalgia Diner concept to independent operators in 2026. They want to sell you a $16 clam strip basket based purely on the fact that your grandfather used to eat there. But a modern frozen clam under a faded orange roof isn't a comeback. It's taxidermy. If you think one rogue diner is sad, wait until you hear about the buffet trough that is somehow still serving steaks in the Midwest. 14. Ponderosa Steakhouse and Bonanza. You remember the smell? It was a mix of cheap sizzle platters, spilled soft serve, and sneeze guards. Ponderosa and its sister chain, Bonanza, was the pioneer of the budget steakhouse. In the 1980s, it was a juggernaut. You went there on a Tuesday night to get a tough piece of meat and infinite trips to a salad bar that mostly consisted of Jell-O cubes and macaroni salad. But then, the fast casual boom happened. Places like Panera and Chipotle taught Americans that cheap food didn't have to be served in a dark carpeted room that smelled like old grease. Ponderosa filed for bankruptcy in 2008, taking hundreds of stores down with it. Everyone assumes they went extinct, but they didn't. There are exactly 3 locations left scattered across the Midwest, operating like forgotten outposts in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. They are surviving purely on the stubbornness of their local franchisees and a fiercely loyal demographic of senior citizens who refuse to eat anywhere else. But in 2026, the corporate owner, Fat Brands, a massive conglomerate that buys dying chains, is trying to package Ponderosa as a ghost kitchen concept. They want to sell you Ponderosa steaks on Uber Eats. Let that sink in. The entire appeal of Ponderosa was the all-you-can-eat buffet. Ordering a cheap, lukewarm steak delivered in a cardboard box to your house completely misses the point. It's a desperate play for a brand that should have been put out to pasture. But if you think a ghost kitchen steak is bad, wait until you hear about the chicken chain that ran away to Asia. 13. Kenny Rogers Roasters. It's the wood that makes it good. If you are of a certain age, you only know Kenny Rogers Roasters from that one iconic episode of Seinfeld where the neon sign keeps Kramer awake. In the 1990s, the country music legend teamed up with the former CEO of KFC to build a rotisserie chicken empire. It was actually delicious, but they expanded too fast, picked a fight with Boston Market that they couldn't win, and filed for bankruptcy in 1998. The American stores vanished overnight. But here is the massive twist that most Americans don't know. Kenny Rogers Roasters is a massive success, just not here. The brand was bought by a Malaysian conglomerate. Right now, there are hundreds of Kenny Rogers Roasters operating across Malaysia, the Philippines, and Southeast Asia. It is a premium, respected brand over there. They serve chicken with macaroni and cheese, and people love it. And now, the Asian owners are looking back across the Pacific. In 2026, there are aggressive whispers in franchise circles that the Malaysian parent company wants to reintroduce the brand to the US market. They want to bring the American country singer's chicken back to America via Kuala Lumpur. It's a bizarre reverse colonization of fast food. But Americans don't remember the chicken. They remember the meme. And you can't build a sustainable business model on a 30-year-old sitcom joke. Speaking of jokes, the next chain on our list literally sells fish out of a hot dog stand. 12. Arthur Treacher's Fish and Chips. In the 1970s, fast food seafood was a booming industry, and Arthur Treacher's was the king of the castle. Named after an English character actor, the chain boasted over 800 locations. They sold battered fish, greasy chips, and those legendary little hush puppies. Then, the cod wars hit in the late 70s. The price of cod skyrocketed. The chain refused to raise prices, the franchisees revolted, and the entire empire collapsed like a house of cards. Today, Arthur Treacher's is a zombie. It is a brand without a body. There are only 1 or 2 standalone restaurants left in Ohio, surviving on pure Midwest grit. But the brand itself was bought by Nathan's famous hot dogs. So, what is the 2026 comeback? Nathan's is aggressively pushing Arthur Treacher's as a co-brand. They are shoving a deep fryer into the back of existing Nathan's locations and slapping an Arthur Treacher's sticker on the window. It's an illusion. You aren't going to a fish and chips restaurant. You're just buying frozen fish sticks from a hot dog cashier. They are milking the nostalgia of the logo without providing any of the actual experience. It's a phantom chain, and if we are talking about phantoms, we have to talk about the forgotten cousin of Arby's. 11. Rax Roast Beef. Rax is the tragedy of the fast food world. In the 1980s, Rax Roast Beef was a legitimate threat to Arby's. They had over 500 locations. They were innovative. They had salad bars, baked potatoes, and architecture that featured beautiful solariums where you could eat your roast beef under the sun. So, what killed them? The worst marketing campaign in human history. In the early 90s, they tried to pivot to an adult demographic. They introduced a mascot named Mr. Delicious. He was a depressing, middle-aged animated man who complained about his ex-wife, his receding hairline, and his vasectomy, while trying to sell you a sandwich. I am not making this up. Look it up. It terrified children, alienated adults, and drove the company straight into bankruptcy within months. Today, there are a handful of Rax locations clinging to life in small towns in Ohio. But in 2026, a group of die-hard fans and independent operators are trying a grassroots revival. They are crowdfunding. They are selling merch. They want to open a new flagship store. It's a romantic idea, but you cannot resurrect a 500-store empire with a GoFundMe. The supply chain doesn't exist. The brand recognition outside of Ohio is zero. It's a nostalgia trip doomed to fail. But if Rax died from bad marketing, the next chain on our list died because they actually weighed you before you ate. 10. The Ground Round. If you grew up in the 80s or 90s, the Ground Round was the wildest place your parents could take you. It was a chaotic paradise. They played classic movies on a giant projector screen. They served free popcorn, and the absolute best part? You were encouraged to throw the peanut shells directly onto the floor. It was socially acceptable vandalism. They also had a legendary promotion for kids. Pay what you weigh. You stepped on a scale, and your meal cost a penny per pound. If you weighed 60 pounds, your dinner was 60 cents. It was incredible for us, but it was a financial nightmare for the company. The profit margins were razor thin. Then, they were bought by private equity. Private equity firms do one thing well. They squeeze the life out of a brand. They strip the fun out of Ground Round. They took away the free popcorn. They cleaned up the floors, they turned it into a generic, boring sports bar, and people stopped going. Today, only a tiny handful of franchisee-owned locations exist. But in 2026, a new ownership group is trying to launch Ground Round 2.0. They want to bring back the nostalgia. But you can't bring back pay what you weigh in an era where a burger costs $18. The magic of Ground Round belonged to a specific, chaotic era of American history, and no amount of corporate rebranding can bring it back. The Ground Round lost its magic, but our next chain lost a war against the biggest sandwich empire on earth. 9. Blimpy. Before Subway conquered the world, there was Blimpy. Founded in New Jersey, Blimpy was the original mega sub chain. In the early 2000s, they had nearly 2,000 locations. Their bread was better, their meats were sliced fresh in front of you, and they had a legitimate, loyal following. Then, Subway launched the $5 footlong campaign. It was a nuclear bomb in the sandwich industry. Subway decided to sell their sandwiches at a loss just to crush the competition. Blimpy franchisees couldn't compete. They couldn't sell a massive, high-quality sub for $5 and keep the lights on. The franchisees went bankrupt. The corporate office scrambled, and the chain imploded. Today, you are lucky if you can find a Blimpy attached to a dusty gas station. For 2026, Kahala Brands, the mega corporation that currently owns the lifeless IP, is attempting a store-within-a-store comeback. They are trying to shove Blimpy kiosks inside other failing brands like Cold Stone Creamery. It's desperate. They are pairing a dead sandwich shop with an overpriced ice cream shop and hoping you won't notice that the fresh sliced magic is gone. Blimpy didn't just lose market share, they lost their soul. And speaking of losing your soul, this next chain is currently the biggest disaster in modern restaurant history. If the idea of paying $18 for a ghost kitchen Ponderosa steak makes your blood boil. Hit that like button right now. Let's send a message to these corporate holding companies that we see what they're doing, and we aren't going to buy their fake nostalgia. And make sure you're subscribed, because I'm currently digging into the dark secrets of Trader Joe's, and let's just say their friendly neighborhood image is about to get completely shattered. Done? Good. Now buckle up, because this next chain isn't just dead. It is currently an active crime scene of unpaid bills. 8. Boston Market. This is a fresh grave. In the 1990s, Boston Market, originally Boston Chicken, changed the way America ate dinner. They offered home meal replacements. You could pick up a whole rotisserie chicken, mashed potatoes, and cornbread on your way home from work and pretend you cooked it. It was genius. They expanded to over 1,200 stores, but in the last 3 years, the company has completely disintegrated in front of our eyes. A businessman named Jay Pandya bought the company, and what followed was a masterclass in destruction. Employees weren't paid, landlords weren't paid. US Foods, their main distributor, sued them for millions in unpaid grocery bills. The state of New Jersey literally shut down dozens of locations in a single day because the company owed hundreds of thousands in back wages. As of right now, Boston Market is essentially dead, down to less than 20 rogue locations. But the comeback is already being plotted. In 2026, private equity scavengers are circling the corpse. They want to buy the IP out of bankruptcy for pennies. They plan to launch a Boston Market Express model. Smaller footprint, drive-through only, fully automated. They want the name without the people, but you can't sell comfort food from a robotic drive-through window run by a company that refused to pay its own workers. Boston Market is toxic, but the next chain on our list pioneered the toxic business model. 7. Quiznos. In the mid-2000s, Quiznos was the coolest fast food chain in America. They had those weird, creepy sponge monkey commercials. They had the toaster ovens that made Subway look like amateur hour. They peaked at nearly 5,000 locations. Then, corporate greed destroyed it all. Quiznos executed a leveraged buyout. To pay off the massive debt, corporate executives squeezed their own franchisees to death. They forced the independent store owners to buy ingredients directly from corporate at insanely marked up prices. Franchisees were losing money on every sandwich they sold. They rebelled, they sued. They went bankrupt. The 5,000 stores evaporated down to around 150 today. Now, the current owners, Rego Restaurant Group, are desperately trying a 2026 relaunch. They have redesigned the stores. They have new menus. They are begging new franchisees to sign up, promising that things are different now, but the trust is gone. Quiznos committed the cardinal sin of franchising. They cannibalized their own partners. No smart investor is going to open a Quiznos in 2026, knowing the bloody history of that brand. Quiznos burned their partners, but the next chain was killed by a global pandemic, and its return is the most highly anticipated on this list. 6. Sweet Tomatoes. Souplantation. This one actually hurts. Sweet Tomatoes, known as Souplantation in Southern California, was an absolute unicorn. It was a massive, all-you-can-eat buffet that was actually healthy. You walked in, grabbed a tray, and navigated a 50-foot salad bar filled with fresh vegetables, followed by homemade soups, focaccia bread, and muffins. It had a cult following. But in March 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic hit. You literally could not have designed a business model more susceptible to a global pandemic than a giant room where hundreds of strangers share the same soup ladles. The corporate office saw the writing on the wall, filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, and permanently closed all 97 locations. People cried, petitions were signed, and then a miracle happened. In early 2024, an independent operator bought the rights and reopened a single Sweet Tomatoes in Tucson, Arizona. The lines wrapped around the building for weeks. Now, they are planning a massive 2026 expansion. They want to bring the salad bar back to the masses, but it's a massive risk. The economics of a giant buffet are brutal in today's landscape of high food costs and labor shortages. They are betting that millennials miss the muffins enough to pay 2026 prices for them. It's a genuine comeback attempt. But the next chain on our list isn't just coming back. It has a millionaire superfan bankrolling the whole thing. 5. Fuddruckers, the world's greatest hamburgers. If you went to a mall in the 1990s, you went to Fuddruckers. The appeal was simple. They gave you a massive, freshly baked bun, a huge beef patty, and then they left you alone. You took it to the legendary produce bar and loaded it up with your own lettuce, tomatoes, and that dangerously addictive pump cheese. But malls died, and as the malls died, Fuddruckers died with them, shrinking down to a few dozen struggling locations. Enter Nicholas Perkins. Perkins is a businessman who literally grew up loving Fuddruckers. Instead of just being sad about it, he bought the entire company. He is now the first African-American owner of a national burger franchise. His 2026 plan is aggressive. He is closing the massive empty mall locations and opening smaller, non-traditional spots in ghost kitchens, food halls, and strip malls. He wants to modernize the brand. But here is the fatal flaw. The entire identity of Fuddruckers was the experience. It was walking up to the bakery. It was the giant cheese pump. It was the ridiculous arcade games in the corner. If you shrink Fuddruckers into a 500-square-foot ghost kitchen and deliver it via DoorDash, it's just another expensive burger in a soggy box. You can't put nostalgia in a to-go bag. Fuddruckers is trying to shrink. Our next chain is trying to quietly take over the highway. 4. Roy Rogers. This is the ultimate sleeper cell of the fast food world. Roy Rogers was an absolute powerhouse in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic during the 70s and 80s. They had over 600 locations. They were famous for offering the holy trinity of fast food: roast beef, fried chicken, and burgers, all under one roof. Plus, they had the Fixins bar. But in 1990, the brand was bought by Hardee's, and Hardee's completely botched it. They tried to convert the Roy Rogers stores into Hardee's. Customers revolted. Sales plummeted. The brand was sold off in pieces and left for dead. But the Plamondon family, original franchisees of the brand, refused to let it die. They bought the trademark back. For the last decade, they have been quietly hiding in rest stops along the Pennsylvania Turnpike and Maryland highways. But for 2026, they are mounting a serious blockbuster-style comeback. They have redesigned the stores. They have updated the menu. They are aggressively signing new franchise agreements across the East Coast and Midwest. They are betting that people are tired of the McDonald's duopoly and want real roast beef again. It is a slow, methodical, well-funded expansion. But the fast food space is infinitely more crowded now than it was in 1985. Roy Rogers is playing the long game. The next chain is playing on pure, unadulterated Irish luck. 3. Bennigan's. Let's talk about the Monte Cristo. Bennigan's was the pioneer of casual dining. Before Applebee's and TGI Fridays took over the world, Bennigan's was the place you went for a heavy deep-fried meal covered in powdered sugar. They had over 200 locations. It was a staple of American suburbia, but a massive corporate bankruptcy in 2008 wiped out all the corporate-owned stores overnight. Thousands of people showed up to work to find padlocks on the doors. The brand was purchased by Paul Mangiamele, a legendary restaurant fixer. For years, he has been trying to bring Bennigan's back from the dead. His 2026 strategy is wild. He is pushing Bennigan's on the fly. Smaller footprints, delivery-focused, and aggressively licensing the name to ghost kitchens inside hotels and grocery stores. He is essentially trying to turn the Bennigan's brand into a software company, licensing the recipes to anyone with a deep fryer. But the problem is the food itself. A deep-fried turkey and ham sandwich covered in powdered sugar was acceptable in 1996. In 2026, the modern consumer is looking at that calorie count and backing away slowly. Bennigan's is fighting a war against modern health trends. But the same guy trying to save Bennigan's is also bankrolling the biggest, most shocking comeback on this entire list. 2. Steak and Ale. This is the holy grail of restaurant comebacks. Founded in 1966 by the legendary Norman Brinker, Steak and Ale was revolutionary. It was the very first chain to bring the upscale steakhouse experience to the middle class. You walked into a building that looked like a Tudor-style English pub. It was dark, it was romantic, and they invented the concept of the unlimited salad bar. You paid $5 and you felt like a king. By the 2000s, it suffered the same fate as the others: private equity, lack of innovation, and bankruptcy in 2008. But the nostalgia for Steak and Ale is rabid. There are Facebook groups with tens of thousands of members begging for its return. And Paul Mangiamele, the Bennigan's guy, listened. He didn't just buy the trademark, he went all in. He secured millions in funding. In mid-2024, the very first resurrected Steak and Ale opened in Burnsville, Minnesota, and the plans for 2026 are massive. They are planning a multi-state rollout. They are bringing back the Tudor aesthetic. They are bringing back the unlimited salad bar. They are pricing it aggressively to undercut Outback and Texas Roadhouse. This isn't a ghost kitchen. This isn't a sticker on a hot dog stand. This is a full-blown multi-million-dollar resurrection of a dead empire. Steak and Ale has the money. They have the fan base. But even they pale in comparison to the absolute audacity of our #1 pick. 1. Chi-Chi's, the ultimate zombie. This is the chain you'd never guess. The chain that shouldn't be legally allowed to return. In the 1980s and 90s, Chi-Chi's brought Mexican food to the American suburbs. It was a massive fiesta. They had fried ice cream, massive chimichangas, and sombreros on your birthday. They had over 200 massive, sprawling restaurants. So, what killed the fiesta? The biggest hepatitis A outbreak in the history of the United States restaurant industry. In 2003, tainted green onions served at a Chi-Chi's in Pennsylvania infected over 600 people and killed 4. It was a PR nightmare of apocalyptic proportions. The brand was financially and morally bankrupt within months. The restaurants were bulldozed. But here is the insane secret. The grocery store salsa division survived. Hormel bought the rights to the Chi-Chi's name for supermarkets. And for the last 20 years, Chi-Chi's salsa has quietly been sitting on shelves, making hundreds of millions of dollars. An entire generation has grown up eating the salsa, completely unaware that the brand is associated with a deadly health scandal. And now, the corporate whispers are deafening. In 2026, brand holding companies are eyeing that grocery revenue. They see the success of Taco Bell's upscale cantina concepts. The rumor in the restaurant real estate world is that an investment group is preparing a pilot program to bring back the Chi-Chi's brick-and-mortar restaurant. They plan to launch it as a trendy, fast-casual margarita bar. No sombreros, no giant plates of refried beans. Just the name, the salsa, and the tequila. They are banking on the fact that you have amnesia. They are betting millions that the memory of the hepatitis outbreak has faded, and the nostalgia for the fiesta will override your survival instincts. It is the boldest, most delusional comeback attempt in modern corporate history.